Okay.
We live?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to call to order our special council meeting for the purposes of setting the 2021 budget to order at 6:01. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'd so move, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Do I have a seconder?
Everhart, a second, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, sir. Any objection? I'm hearing none. Carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of interest? I'm seeing none. Carried. Okay, like as I mentioned, the purpose of this meeting is for the budget and planning discussions for the 2021 budget. So moving on to items to be discussed, we have Article 5.1, pages 2 to 34, which is a proposed 21 draft budget and tax rate assessment. May I have a motion, please, to get that on the table for discussion?
Everhart.
Thank you very much. I'll take that. May I have a seconder, please, the Deputy Mayor?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any objections? I'm hearing none. Carried. So, Christine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn things over to you to give us just a high level overview of what we're looking at in front of us. I know that you've made paper copies available to all of us, and I believe some of us have already picked those up. Thank you very much. So I'd like to start the conversation by having you just go over some of the summary page, which is page 2, and we'll move forward. After that, we can look at each individual department.
Okay, so on page 2, this is the summary you've seen for the last couple years from me. It shows us our growth from the previous year that allows us to increase the levy without impacting the tax rates as a whole. It looks like we have about $14,000, which is about a percentage for us. I tried to give council everything they were looking for, and staff everything they were looking for. We'll see as we go through if council wishes to make changes, but we're sitting at 2.57 with the growth. It's only 1.53, and the bottom line on our portion is at less than 2% as we sit right now. As you'll see, the residential assessment hasn't changed from year to year. There was no reassessment like they had planned this year because of COVID. So everything's pretty even keel here. The next page is the summary sheet, and I'm sorry, on this version it doesn't match, but on the paper copy it does match. There was a spreadsheet calculation error on this sheet, so the percentages match the summary sheet that I showed you. This should be 2.57, just like the other sheet. So I guess if we can just go through and I'll highlight the changes I made. We had the $6,500 in here for the occupational health and the health and safety, and we can have a consultant do it, or we can work away at it ourselves. It would go faster if I had a consultant just to get it done, but I'll have to ask council I know there's a lot of policies we need to update, so it'll be a priority for council in which ones we pick and choose to go first. That was the change there. In the fire department, I have included the borrowing for the truck. More and more information seems to come in every day. The fire chief was speaking to somebody at the fire underwriters place, a Mark Rajewski, and because of the age of the truck, at present we're at a 3A, but due to the age of the truck, we'll be downgraded to a 5, which means that we're rated as unprotected according to the fire underwriters. Daryl did say that we were potentially in the process of getting approval to purchase the new truck but it'll take up to a year to get there. And he said he'd take, based on a decision from council, he would take that information to his supervisor to see if we would be able to keep our 3A rating. The ratings, I think it impacts the residential insurance premiums for the town. So, but I think it's more apt to impact anybody that's looking for commercial liability insurance. And that would be individually how it impacts the town if our rating goes down. So I did include that in here, and maybe I should. Has everybody looked at the borrowing plan that I prepared? Because if we go ahead and borrow this year, we won't be paying any principal payments or interest until next year. So that leaves room in the fire department budget to allow for other things perhaps that council was looking for this year. This, I just have it in there because it set it to a level that I thought was reasonable. The entire budget has gone down, 14,000. But most of that's, of course, in the capital. They're still expecting to do the roof for the 17, and there was a $40,000 or $45,000 transfer to reserves to save for the fire truck. So this 25 really could come out altogether if council moves forward and wants to purchase the truck, because as I said, the borrowing wouldn't take place until next year. There'd be no interest payments. And at that time, I think I provided sample debenture schedules for the 450,000. We'd be looking at 49,000 per year. Now, the fire department just finished paying off some debt last year, and this SCBA and the other fire truck. So this is akin to what they've been already paying in long-term debt. Like, that one's gone away, so there's room to have debt again. There's room in their budget to do so, and it won't increase their budget really going forward.
So Christine, looking at that line item specifically, what was done, I guess, to look at other options? I've seen the report. I see that we got recommendations 1, 2, and 3, but the recommendation being the most expensive recommendation there is. I guess my question is this really our only option? Is a $450,000 expense?
It's not your only option, but
That's
staff believes it's the best option because of the reasons that are laid out in the report.
But as far as new trucks go, I appreciate the fact that there's a new truck. That buying new might give us a little bit more time. But as far as what options were chosen and scaled to the size, when it comes to add-ons and options, I'm sure that any option and add-on can add up quickly. So to get to the $450,000 price tag, is it scalable to our municipality size? It's just a very expensive line item, and I'm really not seeing other options within the new.
Well, I can't answer that, and I had Daryl here at the last meeting, and he asked if I wanted him here again, and I said, well, they asked your questions last time, so I didn't ask him to come. I don't know how to answer that, Dan. I'd have to speak to Chris and Daryl on that.
I'd appreciate seeing some sort of additional options or some sort of verification or validation for that. Like obviously there, I'm not disputing the fact that we require a purchase of a vehicle. That's not it. It's just with the information being provided, we're being asked to add a $450,000 line item, not really knowing exactly all the details. Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up, sir?
Thank you, sir. Looking at how the treasurer has acted and put this together, we do have a bit of time on paying, right? We have to make a decision. I think the sensible decision tonight is to say, yes, we are purchasing an either new to us vehicle or a new vehicle. And as
Yes.
long as we're acting in the next couple of months to put the order in for a new vehicle or actively getting a good used vehicle, I think that's the key tonight, like making that call that, yeah, this is something we need. And we'll make the decision in the very short order because it really doesn't have an impact on this year's budget. It's a minor impact because of the way it's scheduled out. It could be more of an impact if it's a used vehicle that's on the market and we purchase and start paying this year. But I think it's the commitment, I think tonight that we definitely have to make to replacing that truck. And I'm in support of replacing that truck. Thank you.
Absolutely. I would say that the information is laid out there with respects to replacing the vehicle and the needs for that. That's not in question. I guess what's in question is what vehicle, what route would we be going? But as you pointed out, there's, Christine, just to verify, there's no budgetary implications for this year for this other than just a commitment from us?
Just a commitment because we wouldn't start accruing long-term debt until we get the truck, and it takes approximately a year to order. And
Yeah.
in discussions with the fire chief and Chris, who looks after the fire equipment very well, they have looked for use. It's not that they haven't looked. Typically, the trucks they're finding are just not what they need, or they're used up. And we're going to be in the same boat in another couple of years to have to do it again. That's why they're suggesting this. But I'll leave that with you tonight, and perhaps I could have them come back and speak to it. Is that council's wishes?
I don't know if we need, I don't know what council's wishes are. Mine personally would be, I'd like to just see more options with respects to new. I'd like to see, what are we committing to? What are we looking at here? A little bit further than that, like the report's great, lies out the need. The need's not in question. It's just a matter of how much budgetary line item. But as the deputy mayor points out, I think all we need to do is make some sort of commitment with respects to whether or not we're going to purchase a vehicle. And I think that will be committed if we do a small transfer to reserves. That's what you've got in there right now, is a small transfer of reserves.
Well, I can take that transfer to reserves out entirely. That's why it's highlighted. That was to balance so that we were still putting a little, because I mean, let's face it, fire truck isn't the only equipment that the fire department needs. So it's nice to be able to put a little bit in every year to fund those capital expenditures. And if they find a used one, or it can be used to go towards that.
Thank you.
So moving on to OPP, not much we can do there. The Quinte Conservation Authority, I've been in discussions with Maya. We're going to have a meeting in the spring here before the planting starts to make sure everybody's happy. I haven't really changed anything there. Animal control. Roads. So in the roads department, Joe had asked for a few things. There was the
Can you call out the page, please?
I'm sorry?
Can you call out the
18.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see it. I've got people up so I can watch them. Thank you. Okay, I'm there.
Okay, so this one, it's in the capital, and Joe, I had Joe come in and we talked about how much we have in reserves. I mean, we have significant gas tax reserves and some OCIF funding, and I know this storm water, the culvert, the big culvert on Main Street is the top priority for him. It's $175,000 touch. We can cover that with gas tax reserves and the OCIF funding, which I believe we made a decision to dedicate the $50,000 a year. We were putting it away in order to save to do this anyway. So it would be, 100,000 out of OCIF and the balance out of the gas tax for the culvert. It's a safety issue. We've applied for funding for it. We weren't successful. I can continue to look and see if I can still find more storm water. Really, it's a zero. It's coming out of reserves. There's a zero impact on the budget, but he would like to see that done this year. The backhoe, he really wants. He feels he really needs it to rent something for the times he needs it. It's not cost effective. We checked out all of the prices on the backhoes. It's crazy amounts of money to rent it daily, weekly, monthly. He can't do daily because really it takes a couple days to get one. They don't just have them sitting there waiting. This piece of equipment gets used pretty much daily in winter and summer because it loads the trucks with the sand, and in the winter it's doing the digs for water, like water and sewer repairs. It's so this would be again a borrowing item. Our sweeper is finished being paid for in March of 2023. It would take a few months to get a backhoe anyway. So by the time the budget is passed, it'll be end of the year. By the time we get any financing in place, most it would be of the $14,000 backhoe. Sorry, that's not just the backhoe alone. We also have the building we need to borrow for this year, the balance of it. We managed to make it through 2020 without borrowing between the funding that was left for that built the water plant. But now any bills this year, which we believe will be in the neighborhood of 250,000, will have to be offset with borrowing. So that's why I provided the two debentures for the 250 and the 150 approximately for backhoe. I think I put 160 in there, but he figures he can get 40,000 for a trade-in. And the other item he would like to see done is Thomas Street. Again, that gas tax money could be used for that. And I don't think, I think I provided reserve. I certainly provided it in the hard copies everybody got that shows the proposed 2021 and the balance. I mean, overall out of reserves, because we take in 107 and in gas tax this year and 50,000 from OCIF, we're really not taking too much out to cover Thomas Street. Now, the original request had sidewalks and stuff in on Thomas Street. That he at least can do the road this year, and maybe we can look at doing the rest next year with the sidewalks.
Deputy Mayor, you have a question?
Thank you, sir. I remember in December's package, the discussion Stanley Avenue was sitting there. Has that been withdrawn from the table?
I believe council asked staff to put the priorities in, and that's what we've done. Based on
Sure.
discussions with Joe, these are the ones that he feels strongly about.
And where on Thomas Street are we looking at this time?
Sorry, I don't have that in front of me. First to second. This project would include base repairs, resurfacing. And the original estimated cost was 123,500, but taking out the sidewalks allowed him to reduce it to 70,000.
Thank you. And one final, with COVID-19, what are we looking like in the construction industry this year? I know we're all sort of at the mercy of what's happening next. Budgeting things and not being able to implement them would not be the fault of staff this year, but I do have that as a concern with all the potential things coming down in the next couple of months. Has there been any thought into ability to implement all of these capital projects?
I believe the construction industry is fairly well protected by any provincial mandates that have been happening. We haven't been stymied much, particularly as municipal governments go, or specifically more they're thinking the construction needs to continue as we're building healthcare to facilitate COVID-19. But we've been very careful to make sure that any construction was only going on at the Public Works building when it could. And there wasn't very much of the last year that they weren't able to proceed.
And will these two projects be covered internally, or will we put these out to tender, or one or the other? You know, one's internal, one's tendered.
They would have, now I may be speaking out of term, but I'm quite certain the culverts certainly would have to be put out. As far as the work that would be done on Thomas Street, I would have to check with the Public Works manager on that. I'm assuming so. Parts of it anyway would have to be tendered.
Thank you.
So in Joe's overall budget, he's down as well a little bit, leaving room for additional items for council based on the way, because the borrowing isn't, won't take for the building, it might start half the year, right? So I have a little bit built in there for half the year. I have a little bit built in for backhoe for half the year. That's what this $14,000 loan payment is. And it still keeps us under. And in 2022, as I said, the sweepers completely paid for by March. So there'd be a little overlap there. Moving on. I didn't put a lot into water and sewer yet. Rob and I were hoping to present water and sewer separately as it doesn't impact the tax rate. And I just got still waiting on the water financial plan. I did hear from Watson's today, so I'm hoping for the next meeting we can have the water and sewer discussion. That's okay with council. This was as was presented, but there'll be some tweaking before the next meeting. This is where it sits now. Here was the other one, the household hazardous waste day. I took it out in order to leave room for other things this year. We had one this year. If council's okay with not having, maybe doing them every other year. The bag tags the free bag tags have kind of skewed everything on us, and we certainly have some free bag tags this year as well. So our budget for garbage and recycling is not quite what it should be in the way of revenue. And I thought maybe removing the household hazardous waste day would be okay with council this year.
I don't see a need with that, or to have it this year. We had it last year. I think alternating the year would be fine. Deputy?
I would agree with that. I think we cleaned up a lot of the problems this year by having it. The residual waste that people had in their house, there was almost 100 people that went through there and delivered paint cans and stuff that was just sitting there. That stuff builds up over time. I think if we do it in an alternating every other year fashion, or if we're ever in the situation where we can combine with Greater Napanee and they just bill us back for what we deliver, I think we cleared up a huge problem, and it was really successful last year. And this year, alternating, I think the need for the large item waste day is going to be a little higher. So I think that's a good thing. And I think it's fair to the staff that it only commits them one weekend a year. Thank you.
So that was a way to keep the budget down a little bit and allow us some room in case you council decides to give. I mean, as you said, we don't know with COVID what's going to go on. Are we going to wind up giving a bag free for weeks on end again? We're not sure.
If I might, just because we are in a public meeting, I do want to point out that last year we did raise the bag tag price, and that was something that I think a lot of residents, had to, digest, because it was, $1 on a $2 tag. But we are working towards cost recovery for water recycling and waste pickup, and we're there, but we're still not quite there. It's still a deficit of $5,500 on this budget that goes back on the tax bills. And I think it's important that, the more we conserve, the lower our cost is and the better it is for everyone. And the more we recycle, the more revenues go up for that. So I think that's a key thing when people are thinking about what they're getting for that bag tag. Thank you.
On that note, we will have to put out an RFP for garbage and recycling this year, and the whole game has changed. So I really don't know what to expect with that either.
Well, let's get the process started then. Do you need a motion? Or just by approving the budget, we would automatically do it by default?
Well, I was in my work plan to do that in the
Okay.
what do we got? Parks, not too much has changed. Oh, the memorial tree planting was moved over there. Or the $2,500 for the planter flower baskets was moved as per council's request.
Yes, Deputy?
Through you to the CAO, just a question about parks. We have some pretty motley looking trees right now in Centennial Park. There's one that is definitely going to be removed, I think, this spring. Has there been any thought into augmenting the parks with additional tree planting? In 2016, I think we removed some Norway maples from Rathbun Park, and there are some bare spots. Is it a possibility to plant that seed? And that pun was intended with staff to think about where we could start doing some more deliberate tree planting in the parks to, start reforestation there.
I will make a note.
Thank you.
Move on. So recreation. Patrick did present a plan. I'm not sure if Amber would like to speak to this or if council has any questions. I can certainly relay them to Patrick. I'm hoping he did what you had asked for, laid out the costs, and I think he did a COVID friendly one and so I think we were looking for some discussion and direction from council tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Do you have any comment on this?
No, just that when the proposed budget was brought forward through the committee, they're just open to seeing what council would like to see. So I look forward to the discussion as well.
Okay, let's have a quick discussion there on this budget specifically. The TDF grant banners for $10,000. Let's talk about that again. Let's refresh my memory. Exactly what we're getting.
You're asking me what we're
Sure.
getting?
Yeah, the 10,000.
This was,
I just asking for a refresher for everybody.
okay. Not sure, did he do oh, here, the festive banners.
Yes. I just want to see if this is still something that council wishes to do, knowing that, we're trying to do other things in this budget as
So
well.
it's 12 all-weather banners with images on to replace the torn and tattered ones that are on the posts now. This was discussed at a council meeting. I think it was kind of part of the Christmas Christmas thing, and it kind of got morphed into this more so than Christmas banners. But these are the quotes he's provided. He's gotten and provided. What does this council wish to move forward with this project?
Thank you, Deputy. You have your hand up?
Yeah, my concern is because we don't own our own bucket truck, there's always going to be that expense, and we're at the mercy of our provider for that to hang these. Also, a little bit of a concern. I've rose this point a couple of times, and I know we have other priorities, and it's not I don't jab at any staff member. The priorities must take precedence, but we do already have some pretty heinous looking banners that have been tattered. It's something that is a lot of time to maintain and a lot of effort to maintain, and changing them seasonally with our current infrastructure. Is there something we can do better with that $10,000, a Deseronto solution that would beautify at the same time, be a little more gentle on staff time and our resources? That's my thought, because we've done this a couple of times and they look great for a year, and then they age in 2 or 3 years, and by 4 or 5, they're faded, they're tattered. A good windstorm gives them a chuck, and it's 10 grand. Like, that's not a lot of money in municipal world, but in Deseronto, that's not chump change.
So is this something council wants to consider leaving in there in the 2021 budget, or would we feel that our money would be better spent looking at maybe just deferring this to to our new committee and having them look at priorities and when that would go in? Because I think this would fall perfectly into the structure of the new committee for discussion, because that's what the new committee does. It would be looking at the revitalization, the economic redevelopment of our downtown core. Yes.
I have a really good confidence that new committee might generate new ideas as well. So any new idea, if we're starting these committees in April of this year and we're ready to go in the fall, that would be perfect for a 2022 budget item. So I would suggest that we remove this for this year.
Thank you.
That would be my suggestion.
When we're staring down backhoes and fire trucks and stuff like that, I really do think that it would be more important to put our resources into those assets for our community than it would be at this point in time for banners. I think it was great work done. I think, it's excellent, thought, but right now with constraints and the fact that we do have a planning needs as well, it might not be the best money spent at this point in time. What are council's thoughts? I'll open up to anyone. The CIO is going to need some sort of direction of council. Amber?
Your Honor, my
Yes, Council Clark?
my opinion is I'm pretty well gone along with what has been said, but the $10,000, if we are going to be serious looking at a new fire truck, a new backhoe, and so on, I think we have to really look at any money we can save in the meantime, anything that can be put over, say, till 2022 of that, because I think we've got a big responsibility. I know from experience with the police, I know we talk about used vehicles and used equipment and so on, but if we're going to talk about fire trucks and backhoes and that, I would prefer to sink the money into new fire truck, a new backhoe, and things like these banners and so on, put them off for this year and possibly next year, and use that money towards the things that we really need that are a huge expense to us.
I would agree, Councillor Clark.
So just a point of clarification, I'm not sure where the 10,000 numbers come, but for the festive banners, it looks like it's 7,500.
It says
For-
10.
for
In-
winter and summer in Patrick's report, but there's a tourism development fund grant that it looks like perhaps would be there to offset some of the cost.
On page 27 is what I'm referencing.
So on page 42, oh, I thought these were jiving a little better. It maybe I didn't update my spreadsheet. I was looking at Patrick's here. Because on his summary, the banners are not 10,000. They're 7,506.
Yeah, still doesn't change my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah,
And there's
506.
an offsetting grant of 3753, a TDF grant. So I wasn't necessarily trying to change your opinion. I just wanted to make sure that clarification was.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, Councillor Hudson. I'm going to circle back to you. You did put your hand up saying that you wanted to speak, and I took somebody else. So my apologies.
No, that's okay. As always, I'm a big advocate for making our community look beautiful, but at the same time, I hear all of the points about prioritizing. But I just still would like to throw it out there that I would love to see and look forward to more conversations about that beautification process.
Thank you. So on that line specifically, we've got a total revenue of 36,318 less. What am I looking at, Christine? Okay, I'm on page 27.
So you're in my spreadsheet then.
Yes, I'm in your spreadsheet.
Oh. Can you move down as we're talking about to page 36?
And that's where it says 26,000 as the bottom line, right? Not 36,000.
There's a 38 and a 26.
Yeah, okay, yep, thank you.
And my apologies, I hadn't tweaked mine. I guess because maybe I wasn't sure which one to put in there, the 38 or the 26. So I just left it as it was presented last meeting. But Patrick has prepared this one, which reflects and gives council more information to make decisions on. So perhaps we could look at this one instead.
Thank you.
Knowing that the 36 is built in there.
Right. Hey, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Looking at minor baseball, I have a question about the numbers. It looks like we're only expecting 3 teams from Deseronto and $3,000 worth of sponsorship. With COVID-19, I know a lot of our small businesses have taken a pretty big hit. I don't know if that's a realistic expectation for sponsorship this year to offset the cost of minor baseball. And I think with the lack of any organized sports right now, I think parents are thinking baseball would be a good outdoor, fairly distance event if we're able to do it. So I don't know if those numbers will balance off or not. That's just one concern that I have there. And trying to jive the two reports. And I love the Christine spreadsheets because those are what we're used to. And God love the paper. I'm just so excited to actually have the spreadsheet in front of me tonight and stop flipping. It's been great. Thank you so much, Christine, for that. Trying to figure out the line item that says miscellaneous recreation at $22,600. Am I correct in assuming that that is all of the other programs that are listed here in Patrick's report?
On my spreadsheet, yes.
Yeah.
There was some lumping together. Which
Okay.
is why Patrick's is better for tonight's purposes because it breaks everything down rather than lumping them up in the GL as I had to do.
Yeah. because we're moving into the new council committee, and this is a question for council mayor, I'm kind of leery of asking it. Wouldn't it be wise this year to do what we did with the rec committee last year and allocate outside of our marquee events of Santa and Canada Day and Family Day a set amount and then allow the committee to work with it? I think looking at the committee of Councillor Hudson, Councillor Clark, and yourself, I think that might be a good way to get going, and it allows you the flexibility because COVID-19 is going to be a 2021 issue. So it'll give you some flexibility. And I just wanted to ask that question. Maybe that would be a good way forward, like, saying outside of, what we've done, here's 10 or 12 instead of 22 and go for it.
Right. Thank you very much. Councillor Hudson, what's your thoughts on that? I know that at our last meeting, we made a motion to move away from the current recreation committee structure, just long enough that we can pause it, take a look at it, and regroup with our other committees, and then reform possibly a steering committee as we move forward. With that being said, we will not be implementing a lot of those recommendations at this point in time because the committee's not running, I assume. So to the deputy mayor's point, it might be a good time to maybe scale back a little bit of this budget and put it forth to the new committee. What's your thoughts as being the chairperson of the defunct committee?
I think just from how we were kind of running in the committee, all the kind of decisions came back through the council anyway. So I guess it's kind of just what we find is easiest.
Right. So, okay. Is there anything in there that I know you guys have done some work? Is there anything in that list right now that you just can't live without? Anything that you would have to put forth as a priority in that list of recreational recommendations? Because right now you had mentioned that you are into the beautification of the community, and I believe that will be the focus of our new new committee. But we are making some changes to the banners, to funding for banners. So I want to make sure any of the effort that you put forth or any ideas that you want to bring forward are being given fair consideration tonight.
They are. I appreciate that.
So with that being said, we're sitting at Christine, what is the final budget line item am I working on here?
Well, because I didn't match with Patrick's, I think mine is saying bottom line is
36,318.
36,318.
Yeah.
So we may have to tweak. I mean, on the higher end, Patrick's is 38,000. With proposed without COVID restrictions, right? But we don't know how things are going to play out, so we probably can be a little more conservative. With minor ball, who even knows if we're going to be able to do that? Do we budget for it? Don't we budget for it? And do we look at keeping the budget the same as last year, zero impact on and do the best we can with it? This is the discussion, I think, for tonight, because staff are a little at a loss right now because we don't have the crystal ball to say what's going to happen. Last year we budgeted 40,000 for recreation overall, 40,016. 36,012 is less already than we budgeted last year. Now we did spend 35 last year, so I don't know what to.
Deputy?
I really appreciate that point, Christine. I think it's very important. The crystal ball, if we had it right now, we can say that I believe Santa Claus Parade would have more of a reality happening than Canada Day.
Sure.
But I think Canada Day, last year was, something that looking at reopening and how they did it in June and July, that it might have been permissible if they changed their plan a little bit earlier to have something, and that last year was just too much of a risk. And we're becoming old dogs at this trick here. We know how this kind of works now. We've been through it a year, and God love it, if it goes another year, we'll be masters of how reopenings work. I think my gut says it would be great to keep Canada Day in the budget, particularly the fireworks, because I think those are the things that can be most socially distanced. Now, we all know there's risk to storing those suckers if we can't light them off. But I think if we couldn't light them off in July, I think if we lit them off when we could, maybe as a Deseronto Day in September or October, that could be, a way to use those. And then Santa Claus parade, I think that really hurt the community this year. People really missed it. And it has that variable. Do we have our external partners in our community around us able to produce floats safely and that kind of stuff? That's going to be the crux there. But I think keeping the minor ball, Canada Day, and the Santa Claus parade in there are the key pieces. And then maybe a conditional fund for anything else that the committee is able to operate with. If there's, a reprieve in September for something we can do, there's some money there for it. But, it's going to be hit and miss. And I think maybe this is the budget this year where we can contract a little bit without creating any real pain, because we can't really do anything at the same time as pay for some of those bigger ticket items like the fire truck.
Anybody else have any comments on recreation? So there's been some discussion here. Does council have any appetite in changing what your current That's appropriate music for what I just said. So I don't know. I'm going to throw it out there. How about 25K? If we turn that budget line item into 25K, that should cover the Santa Claus parade. It should cover Canada Day, and it should cover any sort of incidentals. Say, for example, if minor ball is able to be played, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of kids just itching to get out there on the field if they're allowed. So it'd be nice to be able to put some sort of buffer in there to accommodate for that. So I think 25K would probably give us the majority of our needs and keep us safe, and probably bring that budget down by 11. I'm just throwing it out. I'm just throwing at a wall right now.
I would agree, sir. Absolutely.
So would council entertain asking the CAO to come back with a draft with another budget line item at 25K and see where that drops? Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll try that. We can always, we're still going to get another kick at the can. I think talking to everybody right at the beginning, I'm glad we had the quick conversation about the fire truck, because it helped to prioritize where council's wishes are going to be. And it's definitely going to be on capital, and it's going to be on planning. So that's, capital and planning. Thank you.
Okay, so the arena, still holding out, hoping for this grant to go through. 18 months we've been waiting. So that is built in to this scenario. Federal and provincial funding, and a contribution from the reserves to make up our share of the $670,000 line item, which will look after the arena roof and some other stuff. And I did get in touch with Chris Morgan, who had helped me put this application together initially. And I think we're gonna have to take a look. I have reached out to the grant people to find out, if we get it, is there any way to make changes to it? The costs of everything have gone up. So what was going to give us, what we could have bought for $670,000 in 2019 is certainly not what we can buy in 2021. So hopefully at the next meeting, we can have a better discussion about this. I'll have more information about what we can and can't change, where, how far are we required? Are we only required to spend up to, and then maybe we can prioritize some stuff in it. It's all hinged on getting the grant and seeing what we can do for that money. So hopefully I'll have more information in 2 weeks.
Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up?
Yeah, 2 quick points. First, to the grant, I think that's a great idea. I think we got a refresher when we saw the points 2 weeks ago. And I think the key thing is we've learned more about our community center usage in the last year, what people are really using it for, and maybe aligning the way we move that money into a business plan so that it's more marketable. I can't see us not working on the structural before the others and throwing in other things that aren't structural. Geez, that kind of sets us back to an extent as well. And then looking at the spreadsheet, just one point of concern that I see with the proposed, and it's a revenue, unfortunately, the summer rentals of the arena. They're projected to be 10,000 this year. I'm a little bit concerned at the height of that. Last year we had very little on summer rental. I think we might be needing to go down a little bit with the projections on that revenue. And that's the only comment I have on this one. Thank you.
Has there been a rate bylaw presented with respects to our rental rates, Christine? Have we
Not for
looked-
the arena, no.
So we have,
This
so
is
this-
not a year.
not the year to look at what?
I don't know if it's the year we haven't been open and I'm not, I guess we'd have to do what are other places doing. As far as I know, there's no increases in other arenas, but can double check. Just the COVID climate is maybe not allowing that to happen at this point.
The issue is we've noticed that the majority of our users are from out of town. So right now we are looking at a very large subsidy for many users that don't live in our community. In and itself, not an issue if we knew how to harness and market this facility to I guess to assist with other aspects of our organization. So right now, as it sits, we're looking at a very heavy deficit and very greater use from our own community right now. So I still have to point that out. So that would be my thought of why I'd like to look at rental increases. Short of that, I'd like to start a conversation with neighboring municipalities and letting them know that that it's the majority of the users are coming from your communities. And although we appreciate our impact on the area and being a southeastern hub for Hastings County with all the services that we're offering to the county, tying us in nicely. It would probably not be wouldn't be a disservice to us and our center if we just sent a letter out to these people, letting them know, that there's majority of the users are coming from you. I'm hedging because I don't exactly know how to approach this conversation. Yeah, Councillor Hudson.
You're right.
I'll take you next, Councillor Clark. We'll take Councillor Hudson first.
I'm just wondering, going along the same kinds of lines as what Transit had done in reaching out to partnering communities, would it, I guess, idea for a similar approach?
It might be, Councillor Hudson, and as we're sitting here talking, and as you said that, yeah, I would say that, yeah, a board type thing might be something we'd want to consider, but possibly, maybe I've jumped the gun a little bit. Maybe this is a committee discussion. I could be, I might have just taken a little bit of pause and came to that conclusion. Deputy Mayor, just 1 second. I'm going to take Councillor Clark first, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, sir? Councillor Clark, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, what I was going to say, Your Honor, I agree with we really need to get in touch with the other communities that use our arena, because if anything goes wrong with machinery and so on, it's the residents of Deseronta that have to pay. But rather than send a letter out to the communities, I would like us to sit down face to face, like some members of council with members of the other council. It's easy to answer a letter. It's not so easy to answer a person when you're sitting across the table face to face and you hear all the reasons. So I'm not opposed to the letter, but I would like to see maybe a meeting between Deseronto and Tyndonega Township and the Mohawks and so on, and sit and explain the situation to them, and just put it to them that if we don't get help, and if we don't get help soon, there's a good possibility that our arena may have to close down.
Well, what I would say, Councillor Clark, is you're probably bang on that it's easier to open up a dialogue when you're looking at somebody. So what probably, and I probably jumped the gun a little bit in this conversation. It's just I'm very passionate about making sure this stays at the forefront of this council, that we address it. But this is something that we should be looking at the committee level, and we can formulate a plan, Councillor Clark, to get that in-person meeting with our affected shareholders. So I agree with you.
Well,
the best.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be a good thing for committee level, that we sit down, make a plan, and then we follow through on it, because I think it's important that we get the other communities involved in our expense, because as the deputy says, we have the least people using the arena, and the others use the arena, and really at no cost to them.
Absolutely. So I think you're bang on. It's probably a better conversation for committee, and we'll keep it within there. Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up.
Thank you, sir. I'm so glad to hear the consensus around the table on this issue. This is something that I've observed for a long time, and the information that we've been learning about in the last year really supports the theory that for a very long time, Deseronto, being the urban center, has been off subsidizing in a way other municipalities who aren't urban, who don't have a community center. And I think it's really important. I wouldn't go as far as to say we're thinking of closing it down. It's going to continue to weigh us down, I think. But I think it's important that our neighboring municipalities and MBQ as well all realize that is such an important thing for people in their communities and their folks, that we need to continue to ask for support at the municipal or territorial level. That's the key thing here. This has been 50 years of fewer and fewer Deseronto residents using this facility, and more outsiders using it to everyone's benefit, but it doesn't cost the municipality anything. Imagine if we didn't have an arena. Maybe there would be an arena in Melrose that we'd be all trucking out to, or an arena near the lacrosse field, the baseball field on the territory that people would use. We're offsetting. And I'm also open to having the discussion. Maybe there's something in their recreational programming that we can benefit from, and they can really, we can create some synergy and improve recreation and facilities in the general area. This could be a good conversation to have. And I think it's, we're good neighbors. It's time to have the talk. Thank you.
I believe that's where we're at here. I think this is a defer this conversation to committee. Once we get the committees formed in April and up and running, I think this is something that committee can take on and engage in that conversation. Anybody else on council have any comments with respects to this? Any comments with respects to the budget itself pertaining to the arena operations community center? Deputy Mayor has made one concern with respects to statement of revenue. I think that's been noted by the CAO, and I think that'll be probably adjusted when we move forward. Thank you, CAO. You're up.
Okay, so moving along from the arena. The library, I don't think there's any change there. The budget seemed to be the same.
Just a point on that, Christine. The library has had a discussion to talk about capital. The building is a municipal building, and there are some things that this year, next year, and the year coming will probably need to be adjusted. I would like to invite council when we are able to do a tour of the facility. There are some things that I think we really need to be looking at. And all of these things would probably hit the municipal level because they are structural and they are very important. For instance, the furnaces are always a concern. The air conditioner is sitting on the neighboring property and could be easily, for a few $1,000, moved to the roof to no longer incur onto the neighbor's property. There are issues with it hasn't been painted in 20 years. The carpet's worn. There are tripping hazards. There's some pretty wonky electrical in some places, and this is all our building. It is a municipal building. Also, the 2 washrooms are in terrible state and would not be called accessible under today's standards. And those are the only 2 public washrooms that are open year round in a municipal building in Deseronto. So they are used. They are a tourism thing. You know, you need to have washrooms if you're going to have people using your downtown. So it's something that we need to seriously look at. I can forward the costing from our last grant proposal. That's where we got our information. I think it's still on file in Town Hall, but we are concerned as a board, and this was just at our last meeting that we really had this discussion, that there could be unforeseen, if we're not really attacking the heating and cooling this year, costs. And, the library has some money to look after general routine maintenance, plumbing in new light bulbs, fixing things that are minor, but these things are kind of hitting onto the municipality side with the ownership of the building resting with the municipality. And I did want to bring that to council's attention tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dalton. Okay, so, and then the deputy treasurer got some prices from some planning agencies that you could see in the report. I'm not sure what to budget here without doing an RFP and very specifically outlining exactly what council is expecting from this planner. I've just kind of went, is 30,000 enough based on the rates you see? Will that?
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was looking
Okay.
for feedback.
Yeah, so I looked at the services, I looked at the report that you mentioned. I think this, like everything else, CAO, I think this is going to be an ongoing issue. I think if we dropped $30,000 into that basket right now, that would give us a fair amount of money to get started on. Like, for example, like when it comes down to the site plan review for the North Green Street project, I personally would feel more confident if we had some sort of guiding powers to come in and make sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, somebody working on our behalf to help guide us through a site management plan like that. So I would say $30,000 based on the costing that you provided and the amount of hours of labor that we would get. I think it would be satisfactory to get us going. It's more than we budgeted for years, and it'll give us about 150 hours worth of work.
Okay.
Deputy?
I would agree. That's a good amount. I think with the downtown properties we own and what we want to attack there as well, that'll give us a good start to get us going. Maybe getting them to marketable or saleable could be a possibility, but it moves us in the right direction. And I think the acknowledgement that we've all had that Deseronto isn't growing physically, it is growing other ways, but we have limited land. And if we are going to successfully be sustainable, we have to have the right planning and the right new revenues and the right housing for our residents. So I'm all for, I think 150 hours would get us moving in a really good direction.
I believe so, yeah. Any other comment? Thank you for that.
And the transit budget, I did get numbers from Jenny on this. As always, it's the 20,000 less the 8,900 administration fee we charge them that we pay for transit. So just a little over 10. Everything's funded by grants.
Deputy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it's the great folks at Desert to hold the bag on this. I just have a question. It looks like the grants have skewed. Last year we budgeted, for instance, with gas tax money, 193,000 and change, and our actuals were 88 and change.
So-
Is that COVID related and
Just-
operational related, or was there a change in the grants?
Just to clarify, that is not the gas tax money we received. That is what was used out of the provincial gas tax money.
Okay,
Okay. And yes, it's a skewed because of we weren't running full capacity and all. So the 193 wasn't used up. So the money we got, and if you look on the reserve, you'll see in the obligatory reserves at the bottom
yep,
is the gas tax provincial. So it shows at the end of 2020, we expect to have 160,000 still sitting in there.
okay.
Receiving, right?
So the actuals are, it's just showing up in revenue, and that's where okay.
Yeah, it's misleading in it, and
Yeah.
you know, I think maybe prior, but in order to balance us to the $20,000,
That's how it works. Okay,
that's how it works. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. I don't think there's any. There's a few grants. They are actually getting quite a few grants. Transit got, they got a cleaning grant for COVID. They got a safe startup grant for COVID and a phase 2 startup. And then their CT grant is for some expansion. And, but it's all been stymied with COVID. Hard to move forward with any of the plans that Susan had put in place prior to leaving. That COVID, that CT grant was applied for and before I got here. So anyway, this is the proposal for this year. For now, we'll see how things go this year.
Christine, for my benefit and those council who don't already know, if we were to go ahead with allocating the resources and the money to the borrowing of our community, where does this leave us in future borrowing opportunity? Like how tapped are we of our borrowing capabilities over the next, say, 5 years, or how far can you foresee?
Well, the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant obviously are on for the 30-year ticket.
That's correct. Yeah.
Because I was hoping to go through OCIF, well, for all of them, because their rates are better than BMO. But the money that was left with water right now, it's locked in for a 30-year term. That's not saying I can't apply for a shorter term, but I was hoping to use that for the public works building because it's certainly going to last 30 years. Buildings can go over long term, but any of the other stuff on my see, where did I put those?
So we've got some money dropping off in 2023. It looks like we've got the Olympia, we got the sweeper. They all drop off in 2023. We have a couple dropping off this year too, don't we? We have one. We have a transit van.
I think the transit van's already gone.
Yeah, drops off this year, it says. So we'll be freeing 8,300 up in 2022.
Yeah, so on 20, so we were paying 137 in borrowing in 2019. In 2020, we paid 45. And, you know, if we going forward, sorry, we were paying 137. We're down in 2021 to only paying off the Olympia and the sweeper. Yes, I don't have the water and sewer stuff in here. Just to make it clear, because they're not under the tax rate, right?
Right.
So yes, even if we borrow the items at the bottom, like the bottom line is
Yes.
still less than what we were paying in 2019.
Well, that's what I'm seeing here. And that's,
Yeah.
and it is
Yeah.
our highest borrowing capacity over the last 5 years, our highest debt load was 137,589.
On 29, based on
Yeah.
2019. I think it was even more in 2018. I'm not sure.
Then we made a serious dent in that in 2020.
And
So-
I set these up for 10-year, the 10-year on the larger pieces of equipment isn't reasonable to expect the backhoe or the fire truck to last 10 years.
What is the shelf life of a fire truck? Like I think they presented in our present. So it's-
Depending on tanker or pumper, it's 15 to 20 years.
I believe we're looking for a tanker pumper in order to get the maximum bang for our buck. I think that
Right.
was the presentation was a combined unit. We get an extra 5 years or something like that.
That's right. So they could potentially get 20 years out of it. So we could put it over 20 years if we wanted to, but
We
you
might
know,
not. So we'll only owe 52,500 in payments in 2023. Okay.
Yes.
Which we've accommodated worse in the past. Okay.
yes, absolutely. And I felt it was reasonable with the amortization schedule set up that way.
Deputy?
I agree with the reasonableness of the time frame and the amount that we're borrowing here. Let's take a look at, as Christine pointed out, that building's an asset that's going to remain viable for decades. These two pieces of equipment, one we definitely need, one is strongly recommended. I think that's where we have our discussion on. And then we take a look at the capital projects that Public Works has put out. I think looking at just walking by that culvert on Main Street, I think that's going to be a critical thing to replace. It's probably the more complicated of the two projects. If we were to prioritize one for this year and one for next year, that's the way we could maybe go about it. But I think the key thing is this year to remember that interest rates are low. Desron has good credit, and we are looking more and more progressively at asset management and planning. So, I'm more comfortable because these are things that I've been told about several years in advance. And as we get more proficient with our asset management planning, it's going to be a lot easier, I think. So I feel more comfortable about these debentures than before. Like this is good. This is good. I think after 6 years or 7 years on this game, it's nice to see that, we're not being surprised by the asks. They're reasonable and within the asset management plan, which I think is a great way to be. So I think our decision is how much do we go this year? How much do we go next year? And I think a lot of it will have to be like, implementation. Can we implement all of these asks this year? And there's nothing worse than having something in the budget and not implementing it. People are expecting it. So I think that's maybe where our conversation should be going next, Mayor. Thank you.
I want to swing back to the health and safety. There was a question asked by the CAO whether or not we wanted to go ahead and tidy up our health and safety audit concerns. And the question was, we can do it in-house or we can look at a consultation. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Throwing on my sort of background through union work, I don't like having health and safety concerns overhead as someone sitting on a board, as we are as councillors. I would like to see those cleared up as soon as possible. And if it requires the use of a consultant, I think that's a good use of money because it frees up our staff time to attack the day-to-day running or the projects that we put on them over the course of the year. I think, if there's a reasonable consultant out there and we can get something done and ready to go and implemented, I think that's a good way of going about it. So that would be definitely my priority this year as a policy. Then after that would be taking a look at the human resources policy. That would be where I would be looking at right now.
I'd agree 100%. If it looks like it's a manageable number from previous budgets, I think. I'd like to see a budget CAO come back with a consultant fee put in there to bring our health and safety up to the standards that were recommended in our audit.
So
Or at
I
least-
think it was 6,500 I had in there based on discussions with the consultant that did the audit in the first place, who also has done a lot of work for transit to bring their health and safety all up to date. So, but given that we've taken 25K out of recreation, there's certainly room to put that 6,000 back in.
I would have to say that that would be a priority, is let's get the health and safety of our corporation tidied up. Let's free up the time of our staff to be doing things like serving the residents of the community. And I think that'd be perfect. And with onboarding and bringing on consultants for planning, I think a lot of your time is going to be spent elsewhere, more probably project management. So I think this would probably be a good line item to add.
Okay.
Anything else from council? CAO, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think I laid everything out as clear as I can. If there's any questions, to feel free to give me a call if you know, you think of something after the meeting. I will work towards turning my head to the water and sewer budget for the next meeting. I can redraft this and bring it back to council as well. See where we're sitting with the health and safety in and the 25 out of the recreation budget. And maybe perhaps answer some of the other questions that council had tonight, but yeah, that's all I have for tonight. I tried to put it in. I mean, you asked for the 2% and the priorities, so this is what we came back with.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, there's just one more concern that hit me. Driving from Napanee today, it's quite evident that we have emerald ash borer infestation in our cemetery. And I know we grant $20,000 to the cemetery board, but we have 6 or 7 major trees that are infested, and that will be a serious capital that they have to take on. And I just want to point out, because I know through conservation that emerald ash borer is a really crappy thing to have in your trees. Ash trees, once they die, they have a tendency not to break off branch by branch, but they actually tend to snap at the base. And looking at the headstones that we've put money towards restoring, we could have a liability there. And I know some of these trees sort of look like they're on the Greater Napanee Road allowance, but quite a few of them are within our cemetery, and that would be an expense that would need to be taken care of rather quickly to prevent any damage to property. Just wanted to put that one out there.
Are you asking for any action from that, or is that just a comment?
I think the action would be if the cemetery board is aware of that, and if the budget would allow for us to take care of that, because, you know, we kind of put the responsibility on the board, but at the end of the day, the liability will land on council if something happens to those cemetery headstones or someone during a service or a visit to the cemetery.
So you're asking for some sort of budgetary consideration, or you're asking for an RFP or some sort of?
I think some consideration would be a great thing, just to make sure we have enough money there. This is going to be an ongoing issue. We have ash trees in the area. They're all going to be coming down in the next 5 years.
I would think that's the best way to approach it. I think what we need to do is get an assessment of what's going on at the cemetery, have them highlight the problem areas for us, and then we can take them off in bite-sized pieces over the next few budget years. Like, for example, if our grant 20,000 is 20,000, and we can do this over 3 years, and it's going to cost 8,500, we can just, you know, divide it by 3 and look at adding more.
I think this will even be more serious and more quick than that. Unfortunately, it might delay their restoration of headstones. You know, yeah.
I'd like to get a professional,
yeah,
on this station. Maybe that's the best way to start.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything additional? Any comments from council? Christine, when you come back with the next budget, there's a couple capital asks in there, and the deputy mayor brought up a point about maybe we would look at the implementation of the capital timeframe, stuff like that. Can you just get a comment, or possibly when we could get when we would start some of the capital? just add that to the next, add that to the next meeting? Like when would we be doing sidewalks, for example? The roof, when would we expect to get something like that done? Just confirming that our numbers are still good and our time frame still works. Okay, with that being said, any comments from anybody at council? Okay, I'm hearing none. Can I have a motion to receive all items 5.1 through to 5.5? I got it from the deputy. A seconder and Councillor Hudson. Any further comment or question? I'm hearing none. Carried. Okay, next is 6.1, page 69, bylaw 17-21 to confirm the proceedings of council for this February 17th, 20.
I move that bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and come in effect the 17th day of February.
Thank you very much, sir. May I have a seconder, please?
I'll
Councillor.
second that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Any objection? I'm hearing none. Carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Thank you very much. I'll take that. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping here. Our next meeting for finance purposes will be March 3 at 6 p.m. We have a regular council meeting on Feb 24 at 6:30.